Now then, the special counsel, Jack Smith, is the latest to be on the receiving end of President-elect Donald Trump's sharp tongue today after the special counsel concluded his report into Trump's alleged interference in the 2020 election result. Smith ruled that if Trump hadn't been elected as the next US president, he would be facing conviction for inspiring his supporters to commit acts of physical violence on January the 6th. Trump responded with characteristic fury, labelling Smith a deranged, lame-brain prosecutor. Now, if all of this is an indication of the kind of language we can expect for the next 4 years, we are in for a wild ride. Let's speak now to Donald Trump's niece, Mary Trump, psychologist, author of the book Who Could Ever Love You, and now a vocal critic of her uncle. Mary Trump, thank you very much indeed for joining me. I'm really interested, because of your background as a psychologist, in what you think of your uncle's likely state of mind, as it were, now. You know, he's 78, he's older, he has got everything he wants, complete vindication in this victory. Do you think he is in any way likely to mellow?
First of all, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I would not say it's complete vindication, because the two major trials against him were dismissed. So there was no accounting at all for his alleged crimes. And I think Jack Smith lays that out pretty clearly in volume 1 of 2 volumes of his report. Donald is not going to change. I mean, he will be emboldened, certainly, which is a terrifying prospect, because we saw how disastrous his first administration was, when he was, to some degree, bounded by people who were not letting him get away with everything. This would be before the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court essentially made him immune from any kind of accountability for crimes past or future. So one of the things that's sort of fascinating about Donald is that it's never enough, though. He literally has got everything he wanted. He ran for a second term in order to stay out of prison. Here we are. And yet we know that one of his main objectives in a second term, besides accruing as much wealth as humanly possible, is to retaliate against his perceived enemies.
So it is going to be a vengeance presidency, as some people have said, or a revenge presidency. Staying with the sort of psychological side, what do you make of his relationship with J.D. Vance and Elon Musk, both of whom seem to regard him as some kind of strange father figure?
Well, I think J.D. Vance, many of people may have forgotten because he's been so absent from the conversation. He's actually vice president-elect of the United States, but clearly Elon Musk has taken on an outsized role in the incoming administration. So I don't actually think Vance is relevant, except for the backers he brings into the executive branch. He is backed by very wealthy tech oligarchs like Peter Thiel and David Sachs, and obviously Elon Musk is the wealthiest of the wealthy of them, who, by virtue of his vast wealth and involvement in many, many government projects, has an enormous amount of influence over Donald. The question remains, though, who's in charge? And I don't think it's clear yet, because what Musk has learned, and what other leaders should have known by now, people like Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un certainly understand this, is the last person to have Donald's ear is the person with the most influence over him. And Musk has essentially moved into Mar-a-Lago, and we now know that he will have offices in the White House. The question would be, why?
Well, we'll find out in due course. I mean, American politics has always been a strange dance between really big money and power. But I can't remember an administration where the huge wealth of the billionaires has been so close to the presidency ever before. And as you say, the president has complete immunity. So are we now in a different era for what we used to call American democracy? Has the game changed perhaps forever?
Unfortunately, I think the answer to that is it remains to be seen. We should be able to say unequivocally that American democracy will just be just fine. But that is not the case. It suffered a grievous injury with this last election for various complicated reasons. But we are now seeing that the wealthy are in charge. This is literally government of, by, and for the billionaires. And we don't know if the institutions which have failed us over the last 8 years will be able to hold in any significant way. It is not looking good so far. I think we'll know a lot more after the confirmation hearings for the cabinet offices, because it will tell us if some of the egregiously unqualified candidates Donald has put forward make it through. And if they do, and these are people like Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard who are dangers to American national security. If they get confirmed, I think that is part of the answer of where we are headed as a country.
Which is a very grim place indeed. Were you surprised by the extraordinary row that seems to have broken out even as the Los Angeles fires continue to rage between Governor Newsom of California and Donald Trump? He's really making this entirely political.
No, I'm not, because Donald thrives in division. He's a chaos agent, and he will use the most horrific tragedy or crisis of humanity to his benefit. So he will exploit human tragedy to divide us against each other and weaken, again, his perceived enemies. Gavin Newsom was just doing his job and minding his own business. It's Donald Trump who launched baseless attacks against the governor, other officials in California, and who has been threatening to make aid to California conditional, which is just absurd. And one of the problems here is, one, Governor Newsom had to take time out of his day to respond and to fact check the president-elect. And two, we are seeing the wholesale abdication of the Republican Party, who is going along with Donald's rhetoric here. And I cannot think of a worse administration to be in charge when this country is suffering the kinds of natural disasters we are increasingly suffering. And the same can be said for the rest of the world, of course.
Just a little bit of advice for the British. Elon Musk has been extremely vituperative and vicious and personal about Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, and many other people in this country. And it's hard to tell whether he is, as it were, ventriloquizing Donald Trump's ear, saying the things that even Donald Trump doesn't himself want to say, or whether he is a separate player. It's a bit of a ridiculous question, but can you throw any light? What's your instinct about that?
Well, I think that the fact that Donald has Musk so deeply involved in so many aspects of his incoming administration, the fact that Donald isn't pushing back on anything Elon Musk is saying is very troubling. Elon Musk inserted himself into an American election, and he donated at least $250 million to help Donald win this election. And as we know, his involvement in the politics of other countries, as you mentioned, in Great Britain and in Germany as well, and his alliance with the far-right factions in those countries is deeply troubling. One, because what authority does he have to meddle in other countries' elections? And two, it just shows us the dangers of having somebody with such obscenely vast wealth have free rein in weighing in on the way other countries govern themselves.
Mary Trump, I didn't think I was engaging in this interview for a few minutes of calm reassurance, and I was right. Thank you very, very much, nonetheless, for talking to LBC tonight.